At least when it came to academics, I was a really perfectionistic kid. It started in kindergarten when we were coloring picture books, and I decided that if I colored out of the lines, I'd have to redo the whole thing. In elementary school, I was the kid that got upset if somebody handed me back a spelling test where I had misspelled a couple of words. In middle school, I grew into the kid that checked her homework before she turned it in, even if the grade was only completion-based. By the time that I got to high school, I was a full-blown perfectionist. Sometimes, on worksheets, I'd erase and rewrite sentences 5 or 6 times because I couldn't get the handwriting to look right in a class where my professor wrote in fluent chicken scratch. In elementary and middle school, and at the start of high school, perfectionism was time-consuming and made learning a miserable experience, but it worked. My grades were good. There came a time, though, that I realized that I didn't have the time to be so perfectionistic, and it was actually impacting my grades. I realized that it caused irrational feelings of inadequacy and stopped me from applying to opportunities. It was causing me to become more and more of a procrastinator. I didn't want to do assignments that I'd set such daunting expectations for, and I learned that something had to change. Today, I'm going to walk you through how perfectionism was stopping me from applying my full potential to my work by explaining how my perfectionist self might have approached a simple assignment, a paper. As soon as the paper was assigned, I'd take the first step and set some really reasonable standards for myself. I would write the maximum limit of pages, make an optional annotated bibliography proving that my sources were credible, and get 100% on the paper. Perfect plan, right? I'd work my hardest on the paper, checking and rechecking everything before I submitted it, and get one of 2 outcomes. 1, meeting my expectations, or failing. What I see in retrospect is that it didn't matter which outcome happened, the end result was the same. I would be disappointed in myself. On the occasions where I didn't meet the expectation, I became angry and disappointed in myself. When I did meet my goal, I minimized my achievements with phrases like, "It might have been too easy, actually," or "maybe the professor didn't catch the flaws." I felt like I had gotten something that I hadn't earned. I felt like I had gotten away with something. Worse, sometimes I'd criticize myself even more, like, this many resources were fine, but I could have added more. There were long-term effects of this constant disappointment in myself. My self-perception of what I was capable of became warped. I felt like refusing opportunities that I was qualified for because I didn't think I was capable. I didn't use my full potential to embark on different projects because of this feeling. I became more and more of a procrastinator. Because my standards for assignments were so daunting and I had a track record of disappointing myself every time I completed and turned them in, I saw doing assignments as a road to disappointment. And I didn't want to deal with those feelings of disappointment, so I put them off. As a result, my work suffered when I finished it all in a rush right before a deadline. I think a lot of people have this misconception that because perfectionists work so hard towards some impossible goal, they must be effective, high performers. At least for me, this was completely untrue. My work was getting worse, my grades were getting worse, my belief in my capabilities and my confidence was dwindling. It was a toxic cycle of failing, not wanting to try, doing things because I had to, failing, and on and on. Perfectionism had become downright miserable, and it wasn't helping me get any better grades, so something had to change. I had to get rid of the perfectionistic tendencies. I had to deconstruct the way that I approached my work. I forced myself to set more reasonable standards for myself. Instead of asking myself what the ideal score would be on an assignment, I asked myself what I usually got and aimed a little bit higher. I worked hard not to let my failures discourage me from trying next time, and instead tried to learn what I'd done wrong, to do better next time. I tried to be objective about my accomplishments. If I'd earned a good grade, it was because I'd worked smart, not because the professor was being an easy grader or the assignment was too easy. Even if you only recognize a few of these tendencies in yourself, I urge you to look at how they're affecting you and your productivity. I truly think that whether you are a fully blown perfectionist like I was, or if you pick up on some of these tendencies, getting rid of them can help you live up to your potential. Thank you for listening.